Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I think on that, we've kind of talked about, there's this rebound in what we're going to see in first-time home buyers. And that's always if you allow it to be a great moment, I think it's a great moment to be able to be a part of that. It's kind of special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's start off with Rockwall County here. The numbers are interesting to me because we've got articles basically saying everything from the world's falling apart to slowing down to this, that, and the other. And I always make mention, it's hard to show it on paper. So if you're looking at Rockwall County, we got 222 active listings. That's a considerable amount more than we've had in the last couple of weeks. I find that interesting. Maybe it's a builder offloading some inventory, or they put all their inventory on the MLS when they hadn't been putting it on the MLS in a while. It'll be interesting to find out the details behind that, but I don't think it was 50 homeowners listing their house on October 15th. You?
No, I don't think so either.
Active contracts came up from last 2 weeks. I like that number. Pendings came up from last week, kind of back to where we're at. I mean, solds are at 44. I'll take that. That's a healthy number. It's a little off, but not too far off. Overall, numbers look pretty decent. If you get to the graph, obviously this spike in inventory is an interesting, it could be an anomaly, could be something we'll see next week. But at the end of the day, how do you feel about the numbers in Rockwall?
Fine.
Yeah,
I know that's not great.
I'm not excited,
insight, but
and I'm not worried. They're fine, right?
No, yeah. One thing I'd say, kind of looking at the graph at the bottom, you can see little spikes happen after we have some big spikes in inventory. So again, be ready, be on the phones. But we also, if you haven't experienced a market outside of 2020, we're more so back to that. It's still off, but we've been experiencing something that's been fast-paced, a lot of movement, and pretty much nonstop for the last 2 years. And so when you get this return, it feels really, really colder than it actually is. It's still cool, but not as cold as it feels.
Let's look at some of the bigger counties. So you get over here to Dallas County, inventory actually is holding, I guess the way to say it, right? Like the delta between these four numbers is like so small.
Mm-hmm.
And then active option came down a little bit in Dallas County. It's first time we've had a 2 in front of that number since we've been tracking for quite a while. And so 276 is a little off, and I think that's where you're going to see some of the 10% the media is going to talk about, right? Where the market's fallen backwards 10%. What I think is interesting is, okay, this is Dallas County. Rockwall County may not have the same numbers, right? We just, from a difference of size and demand, we may be having a different market than Dallas County, which is just a few miles up the road, right? So it's interesting. As far as solds, 397, that one popped off a little bit, right? Obviously, this was Labor Day. But coming down a little bit, maybe 10%, right? Dallas County seems to be showing that. Collin County, inventory went up to 959. That's a pretty big jump in the middle of the month. So once again, I'm wondering if there's something behind that story. We'll see. 188 active option. That's a big number compared to the last 2 weeks. It gets us kind of back to where we were. Expired listings went to 35. I think I'm interested to keep an eye on this number. Pendings 228 and 224 and sold. That's definitely down from the previous weeks. So Collin County looks like it's sliding backwards a little bit in sales volume or sales units. The other big county in our near side is Denton, 906, 151, and 250 as far as sold. They look like they've gone backwards a little bit. So Jim, I'm seeing the big counties go backwards a little bit. I'm seeing Rockwall County go forwards. You seeing the same?
Yeah, one of the things I saw this last week or the end of the previous was Dallas County hasn't picked up the inventory just overall that we have. If you look back in June, they're below June numbers. So they've yet to really experience this little temporary buyer's market, as we're calling it. And so they're slightly off, but there is an opportunity there where we can start marketing out to Dallas. It's not that far. If you want to change the narrative a little in your business, change the area that you're marketing to right now.
Yeah, 100%. The properties are there. They're still moving. When we say going backwards, I don't mean it fell off a cliff. I just mean you can show it on paper that the numbers slipped a little bit. We're expecting that, right? I'm going to pop an article up here in a minute. Before I do, let's look at the lake. So the lake dropped inventory from 89 to 60. I actually think it's people taking their houses off the market because the lake's low. And, you know, I pulled the water data and you can see in the red, obviously the lake was built back here in the 60s. But it's always had a fluctuation. But from 96 forward, there certainly was a change in water level. But there's these periods of time where significant water goes out of that lake and then it comes back up. They're waiting on the rain. The rain has to happen and it comes back up. Well, we're in the start of a period of time where there's not water in that lake, right? Or there's a lower level of water in that lake. Certainly affects real estate, right? But if you look historically, how long does that last? So these are 10-year periods, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I mean, this looked like a pretty big gap here of a drought. So we'll see, right? But I definitely think when you're looking at these numbers, those numbers are affected by that, right? Pendings held though, active options seem to hold, and sales were up 25, right? So if you sell 9 of the homes, it takes them off, right? Like, so it'll be interesting to watch, right?
No, absolutely. We saw that back in, oh gosh, I forgot when the drought was in Rockwall, but you know, you could walk across certain parts of the lake. Definitely affects it, but yeah, it looks seasonality is what it is. Just like we have a seasonality in real estate and everything else. It's just the season.
There you go. All right, so I want to start here. And this is an opinion piece on Inman that says, stop making comparisons to 2021. To me, this is like that Bob Newhart or whatever it is where he goes, stop it, you know. This whole thing is very important to understand that we start talking about numbers going backwards. Where's my graphs? But you realize on this chart, it's only 2022, but some of these bigger ones, we've got, well, I don't have it on here, but the data goes back further. It's not worthy of comparing because, you know, Jim, you made mention that 2021 was such a big year, such a hot real estate market that it's almost an anomaly and we can't even compare to it. But the news media is all about it.
Yeah, every time you read an article that says something about, well, we're down this percentage or this much, you got to see what it's comparing it to. Because if it's to 2021, of course it is. If it was any higher, we should be absolutely terrified right now. And so you really have to dig in and look at what 2019 looks like. right? If you just get in Etrich's trends, you can see the lines really easily. And the last I looked for September, we were down about 6%, 8%. It just feels like a lot more because we've had 2 years of just nonstop. And whenever you feel the brakes hit, it's going to really feel like you hit them hard. But yes, 6% from 2019. Now, you always want to see that going up. So you'd like it to be 6%, 4% above 2019. But 6% below, the sky isn't falling like 21%.
Yeah. So Jim, what does that conversation sound like with a consumer?
Oh gosh, we have to be forward thinking. The same way we're being forward thinking when we're going up, we have to be the same way going down. We have to be watching what the sales prices are doing. We have to let them know what to expect in the market, because it's going to feel different than when their neighbor Dan sold his house back in the spring or back in early June. It's changed so much, and there's so much static out there. You still have people saying, oh man, we were having 8 showings every week, or we had 15 showings in the first weekend. Know what the showings for your price point looks like. You can guide the seller through a lot of fear, and it's really just objection handling, right? We have to get better at objection handling. We got away from it. We just have to get back there.
100%. Well, speaking of objections, for the first time, Fannie Mae is now predicting that home prices may actually come down next year. And they're saying 1.5%, which to me is like such a small number. But you know, I remember being on this call saying, I don't see it. I don't see prices going backwards. I see them flattening, but I don't see them going backwards. Yet I think the demand has really dropped off to the point if somebody has to sell, price is going to become their only lever to make that property move. And you've got 2 different thoughts on this. You've got the greedy seller that's hung up on what their neighbor sold for. But then you've got the smart seller that understands that, man, the amount of equity I built in my house, I can give a little of it back and move on with my life, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, like I said a second ago about it being down 6%, but what I think the more startling stat wasn't the sales price going down, it's what their forecast of actual sales for the year is going to be. They had forecasted from 2021 to end of 2023, we'd have about a 6% drop overall, and now they're saying a closer to 40% drop. It's a little eye-opening. Will it be 40? Will it be somewhere in between? You know, Fannie Mae's looking at a bigger picture, so we got to remember it's a bigger picture that we're hearing from them. But well, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, should I care about this? If let's start as a consumer. Should I buy a house today in fear that the price may decline?
You know, I always tell people now is always the best time to buy or sell. You don't know what tomorrow is going to be. You don't know what your cost of money is going to be. You don't know when the next COVID is going to happen. You don't know when the next scarcity is going to happen and drive the inventory up, and therefore the prices up. Or I'm sorry, inventory down, prices up. If there is the house that is out there for you, you need to go get that house. If that is the house that is perfect for your family, go get that house. If it makes financial prudent sense for you, that is what you need to do. Now, it means the world to you, because what is your percentage of sales to market? What is your market share personally, right? So if we're going down 40% as a market as a whole, what does that mean for your sales? It doesn't mean that you have to go down. Had a talk with the agent last week, and he said, I don't plan on going down at all. I plan on growing next year. So cool, me too. You should have that same expectation in your business. Market's going down. You just have to change what you're doing, right? A 40% drop overall, 20% in the Metroplex, whatever it's going to be, doesn't have to necessarily affect you. We also have to get better about when is it the right time for a price reduction, right? You need to do what the seller wants you to do. If they're in a bind, but guide them. All right. I'm seeing a lot of price reductions happen in the first 2 weeks because we're so used to the last 2 years of something happening in the first weekend. We used to not see a price reduction for the first 30, 45 days.
Yeah.
We are back in that market. We have to guide our sellers along. We have to get back to this normalcy in a market. If you're brand new, sit down, invite an experienced agent out to coffee, do something, ask them what to expect.
Yeah, for sure. You know, there's a lot of agents that have never listed property and have it not sell in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
And this is your wake up call. Your seller is going to panic at 30 days if their house hadn't sold, and be ready for that. And by the way, they're probably going to sit longer than 30 days these days, right? Like days on market is climbing. We probably should look at that on here. But you need to be prepared. Here would be my answer. Couple things. One is, if you're buying a house today and you're not going to hold it for longer than 2 years, yeah, this is probably worth a talking point. If you're going to hold it more than 2 years, you're fine. Second thing, this is an average of the US going backwards 1.5%. So that means there will be areas where the prices go backwards 10%. And there will be areas where prices go up 10%. And it'll average out to be this. So I think that's really important to understand from a perspective of, just like I was going over numbers saying, hey, Dallas County actually kind of looks a little different than Rockwall County. Well, Dallas County may go back on prices. Rockwall County may not. We may go forward on prices. I don't know yet. We can't predict that. But it's worthy of a mention of, this is probably the average of the nation. Make sense?
Total.
All right, I'm going to blow through some of these quick. North Texas home builders are pursuing the magic bullet, aren't we all, Jim? What's the magic bullet?
I don't know, but the biggest opportunity I saw in here is, if they're going to start less or decrease their home starts by 34%, that means the actual sales that are going to happen next year are going to be 34% more resale, which you're going to be involved in more of those. Yes. So I see a big bright spot here. I'd love to have the new builds on. It does help with marketing, but when there's a scarcity, there's also a big marketing opportunity out there.
Yep. So I think this is the builder playbook, right? Get a decent competitive rate, offer a discount in closing costs to use their lender, which is just the commission on those loans they're throwing back. And then, of course, pay the realtor more, right? That's their playbook. It's been their playbook forever. What's your playbook? What's your incentive to a buyer to go buy real estate right now, outside of just buying the house? Do you have 2-1 buy downs in your back pocket with your lender you can talk to them about? Do you have ways you feel like you can get them in for less cash? Either closing cost assistance or things like that. Those are coming back to the market, and there is no magic bullet, but there are ways to entice, right? Makes sense?
I spoke with the lender Friday that talked about how they have no cost on their refinances. They're preparing for whenever rates do go lower. So they're trying to entice you in, maybe a little higher now, refinance, it's going to be fine, and we won't charge you on that.
Yep. Here we go. This is exactly what you were talking about. USCN first decline in home building since 2011. I think the builders are pulling back. We know that. We can see it in the home starts. We can see it in the permits. And I actually think this could turn out to be a good thing for us. It pumps the resale market. They're expecting a 14% year-over-year decline in U.S. home starts. Yeah, we're not supposed to be comparing to 2021. What does that look like compared to 2019? I would guess it's pretty consistent, right?
Yeah, and anytime you have a ton of one thing for a consecutive amount of months or years as we were in, you're eventually going to see it go the other way, because there's a reason we have an average line that goes through our charts. It's because there's, like you said earlier, there's ups, there's downs. And so when there's some big ups, there's going to be some big downs, and that's where our average line comes in. And that's what we kind of base things off of.
Perfect. This article, DFW Home Sales down for the fourth straight month with 17% decline in September. Yeah, we know this. We're expecting this. We're seeing it slow down. I think it started in June, July as the peak, and then we're on a downward trend. The question, I think one of these articles talks about it, is it seasonality or is it actual slowdown? I think at this point it's actual slowdown.
Yeah. I've been watching our showings across all the price points, and one of the biggest disparities is in 2019, about this time, we were averaging about 4.5 showings per listing. And depending on what price point you're looking at, right now that's per week. And so right now we're looking at 1.8 to 2.3 showings per week. And so the demand is split. But again, demand is split, but we've only gone down so far 6% from 2019. So the buyers that are out there are very serious. Again, if you're working open houses, somebody comes in, you don't walk away going, man, I just had one person walk in. No, you had one extremely serious buyer walk into that open house.
Yeah. And they're out there. All right. Tell me about this. Kaufman mixed use.
Yeah, this is I thought this was pretty big with everything that we're looking in. If you start going down the 175 corridor and all the logistics centers that we're starting to see, we've got this sports center that's being proposed in Kaufman, a lot of retail, a lot of commercial, and it's just very indicative of where we could see our population moving to. I remember seeing something like this in Forney right before Forney had its real big boom. And so it's right around the corner. So if you have something in your back pocket, watch everything that's going down this little corridor here, because there's going to be a boom in this city. This is where our next expansion is going, or at least in our area, it's heading more down toward the south.
Yep, for sure. And 175, 30, 80, all that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same deal. Industrial space, supply chain, they have to have big plots of land to do it. Jim, we lost your video, but I can hear you.
Yeah, let me fix that right quick. Sorry, having all sorts of issues today.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
That's what happens when you have a cool background and camera and all that.
So yeah, USAA moving in with another million in space. You had about a 2 million speculative build in Forney that was announced a month or two ago. A lot of space moving into Forney. I was really excited and interested to see that USAA was putting something like that out and near us. But again, you've got what you've seen in Kaufman. You've got this moving into Forney. We're seeing expansion go on like crazy over in the Rockwall Technology Park. There is a lot of business growth happening right now.
There you go. The other one was this Princeton. They want to be a real city. I didn't know they weren't a real city, but we'll go with it. I see, if you ever drive out 380 East, Princeton is blown up over the last 10 years. And the amount of development that's gone on out there, because land's cheap, right? But it's still commutable. I find it interesting. It's a boom town for sure.
Yeah, what I immediately thought about on this 380 expansion is if they're pushing forward with that going through Princeton, the next place that's going to be hit, it's going to start coming down through Josephine, going into Roy City.
Yeah.
So it's again, one of those, we need to be ready. we need to be talking with landowners, right? There's going to be a ton of land. There's going to be a ton of development that's going to happen in the areas around us. And we're going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to see this toll road coming down through our area. And it's going to be one of those things you look back and say, man, I wish I would have fill in that blank.
Right. There you go. All right. Jim, I'm gonna pull this screen down, and it feels like we're talking a lot of negative. Like it feels like we're saying, hey, it is shifting, builders are pulling back, prices might go backwards, yada, yada, yada. And yet I think it's important to be real on this call and not fluff it. I'd say that a lot. But I still believe, and I will always believe, and I'm gonna kick it to you. We're in charge of our own destination. We're in charge of our own reality. And I've watched people thrive in the worst of worst economic times. It just has everything to do with what I call the duck analogy. On top of the water, you're calm, cool, and poised, and underneath, your feet are moving 100 miles an hour. If you can stay calm, cool, and poised through this market and get your activities going as fast as you can, you will win.
Yeah, Gary said it about a month and a half ago in a class we were in together that growth happens everywhere, right? Growth always exists. And so if you believe that growth always exists, then you need to be able to go and find it. But you can't, you're exactly right. We have to be real here.
Mm-hmm.
And until you acknowledge what's happening around you, you can't find that growth, right? There is opportunity to be found, but we can't just sit around and let it kind of happen kind of how we have been doing it, right? It's not that we didn't work hard in the last 2 years. It's that we worked differently and we didn't have to go out and really do the business generating activities that we typically do.
Yeah.
Gary said something along the lines of, we have these different 80-20 businesses, right? Sometimes we're doing 80% servicing, sometimes we're doing 20% lead gen. And right now we're kind of flipped. We need to be doing 80% lead gen and 20% service, just because that's how our markets change so much. So yeah, things have changed, but there's going to be agents that are getting out of this market, right? There's new home starts that are declining.
Right.
So in all those things, that allows for more sales for you to happen for you. But you got to be able to go out and get it.
Yep, for sure. All right, Jim, there's your industry update. So let's all go be ducks.
Be some ducks.
There you
Have a
go.
good one.
I don't know. We're going to leave it. Bye.